Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to Prime Hour on My Media Prime. This evening, we are going to be looking at the surge in the consumption of illicit drugs across all sectors in Cameroon, with a recent increase with very disturbing effects and consequences on its consumers. We're going to be looking at the network of distribution, those affected by this activity that is described by experts as very, very harmful to the body, and also ways of combating it. We are discussing this with panelists who are in the house with me this evening. We have Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa, who is a permanent consultant with us out here. Good evening, welcome, Apostle.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, Cameroonians. Good evening, my co-panelists. I'm happy to be here today and to deal with this very sensitive topic that has to do with drugs, illicit drugs consumption in the society. As a matter of fact, my junior man is a victim of this very terrible, substance that has affected him severely, and I'm glad to be here today because I'm going to be learning equally while I give my own ideas. Okay,
we also in the company of Reverend Dr. Njinkeng Samuel, who is running a center out there in Kumba Chief Town of Meme Division, working with guys who are greatly affected by this very harmful activity. Doctor, we're glad to have you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Mr. Leo. And good evening, everybody. I want to say I am very pleased to be here and to talk about what I have been undertaking in Kumba. For this whole issue about drugs has been something that is very, very serious with a very devastating effect, as we can see. So it will be a pleasure for me to air out my views on this.
We are also in the company of Kotem Sambit, who is a key member of Cameroon Civil Society, formerly member with a political platform. He's decided to impact Cameroon from a different angle. We're glad to have you this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. Good evening, Cameroonians. And, well, you say impacting Cameroonians, of course, especially the young people. And with Bachi and Sam, Build and Sam, we've been doing a lot of work out there with young people. This is another opportunity for us to diagnose this topic, which is a very, very sensitive one, and especially for the fact that this topic is mostly related with young people, and it will really be important for us to see how we can really go through it, especially when we have somebody to like Apostle Ambe and the doctor here with us. So thank you very much for having me.
Okay, we are starting with you, Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa. What is the situation like in our respective villages, cities, when we talk about illicit drug consumption? Is it acute or moderate?
Mr. Leo, from my findings and the experiences I've had in the field, it is totally outrageous. If we say it is moderate, it's an understatement.
Okay.
It's outrageous as far as Cameroon is concerned and a few African countries I've been to. And to be sincere, let's start with what is an illicit drug. That's where we start from. That are drugs that have been refused from being manufactured, sold, or be under possession. These are things that have been refused not to be produced, or if they are produced, they are not supposed to be sold, or they are not supposed to be kept under the possession of people. If you like things like methamphetamine, cannabis, cocaine, heroin, all these things people take and shoot into their system. Now, when we talk about drugs, drugs is abuse because the drugs themselves, they are not bad. There is a portion of cocaine in your sleeping tablet. There's a portion of cocaine in the anesthesia that is giving you at a particular moderate rate that can help you dose off so that they carry out a surgery on your body. But when you take an overdose of it, it is now abuse. Abnormal use of the drug is what we shoot in our system. Once you shoot in your system, a drug is something that affects the way the body functions. That's what it is. That definition of a drug. It affects the way the body functions. So if you take it, it will determine the course of the body. It will either make the body react properly, stupidly, or somehow. A drug can determine the way somebody thinks, the way he speaks, the way he reacts, the way he sleeps, the way he behaves, because it is what affects the way the body functions. And now we have a lot of serious cases in the society. Something like tramadol is a drug prescribed in the pharmacy. The children take it, shoot it in their system. It becomes now more destructive because tramadol by standard is prescribed in the hospital in certain circumstances. from the research I have carried out. But some people take it now to the extent that you cannot even get them up. They sleep and go into very deep sleep. Some lose their senses, some cannot even communicate. I have a junior brother, my own biological junior brother, who takes what they call Thailand. This Thailand has damaged the faculties of the young man that when you're talking to him, he's looking at you like this, but it's far away from you. It's like the drug separates your faculty from your reality. That's how it is. It separates the soul from the body. The body is right here, but the soul is far away. I don't know how to connect whether it is spiritual. Because to be sincere, if you stay around these guys who take drugs, you will see a life totally different. As a matter of fact, these guys are sitting with you like this, and they are far away from you. You are talking with them, and it's like they are coming from afar. You see, that's exactly my own little understanding I've gotten concerning the people who consume these drugs.
Yeah, but have you made findings to diagnose where his problem is coming from? What prompted him to engage in consuming this?
Highest what I've known is a company.
Okay.
The kind of company you keep will determine if you're going. As somebody who has once smoked, I smoked cigarette, I smoked India hemp before giving my life to Jesus.
Okay.
And as a result of that, I can tell you with all sincerity that people who take drugs start because of the kind of company they keep. If you don't keep a wrong company, it will be difficult for you to be a consumer. Secondly, if you are born in a house where the father or the mother is a consumer, you are under training indirectly. The moment they give you 100 francs to go and buy a cigarette, they are training a smoker indirectly. That's how it is. So these things happen. Either the company you keep or the house you grow under. That's the foundation. Now, when they give you that foundation, now you cannot expand it to any level. Because when you drop for a certain period of time, your system can no longer accommodate that drug. It needs something higher. The more you consume, the more you yearn for something. That's why you see they have shifted from Indian hemp. They have gone now to Thailand and Kayu. If you give somebody Indian hemp, who started with Indian hemp, it doesn't enter the system anymore because the system has gone beyond the control of India. It needs something stronger than that. You see some people take gum 99. Gum 99 is drug. They will open that gum and then they will inhale it because the Indian hemp can no longer meet the demand of their blood system. So I've lived with these guys.
Yes, doctor, you live in Kumba, you work with these guys. Can you explain, paint a picture of what you are living with them in Kumba? How do they get introduced into it?
Yeah, drugs in Kumba, let me just say around the Kumba vicinity, environment. Yeah, because there are people that come to us time to time, even from Malende, from big and small, how do you call that village, going towards Tombe.
Okay.
Yeah, that area. There are people coming there that are going through therapy, that is outpatient therapy. Now, if you look at them, like there is a case from Banga. So this guy, when he came, if you look at it, his case is not like others. Some people enter into this thing through experimentation, just as we're talking about somebody just wanting to try out because he's living in the company of those who are already taking drugs.
Yes.
But this guy's case, he was actually a 30-year student in the university, and he was doing curriculum studies and final year. During his practical, the person that they asked him to, the school they sent him to teach history, that particular history teacher was following his PhD program in Yaoundé. And now this guy came the first day he taught, the second day he taught, the man said, wow, you're wonderful. You're going to continue the teaching while I continue my program in Yaoundé. Now you're going to prepare the notes. He said, sir, please give me your note. He said, you will continue, you will prepare the notes and deliver the lectures. He gave him 7 textbooks to produce the notes. So he told me he will work until he gets exhausted to an extent that he cannot cope, and looking at the work task in front of him and the students' future, he had to put in his all. He said time came whereby he was just so exhausted. He took Medic 555. He could not work. Paracet, he could not work. Efregan, he could not work. And one lady asked him to try just prescribing tramadol. He said, and then it was just those tramadol 250 milligram, 2 tablets. He took that 500 milligram. He took, he said he was better. He came back as if he had not even done any work. He started again afresh, right up to 3 a.m. the following day. Just bathed, went to school. He said it was okay. So each time he felt that discomfort, he goes for tramadol. And at times he just had the tramadol beside him. So he went to the extent when he came for a break there in their neighborhood. He needed tramadol. The tramadol he found was 1,000 milligram, a tablet. So he started, so he's look at how he has escalated from 500 milligram to 1,000. Yeah, 250 to 500. So he started taking 2,000. From there, that's how he broke him down. He could not continue his studies. He was just taken in by tramadol. Now others, due to this crisis, they displace themselves because some people get into drugs due to the accessibility. So you are in a place where the drug is accessible. Okay. So you have to stay with somebody who sells.
It's company.
Yeah, so as you're there, they ask you to dish out. Just like that, you realize you're already there. Others, like there is a case I was dealing with. He told me he came to Kumba with 5 million franc CFA. He was a scammer, and he got into this just due to that company, or you've gotten the money, so you have also to get into the mood. So these are recreational drugs. Some of them get into recreational drugs, yeah, like ecstasy and shisha.
Yeah, shisha.
Yeah, so that's how I got into it, and finally he's dropped out of school, and even the money gone, and I found him in the hoods sleeping on carton.
Okay, yes, but you have been working with them. How serious is this within the Kumba community?
Okay, I can say drug now is a social fact in Kumba.
Okay.
Yeah, because the constraint is very evident. You know, like Apostle Ambe was just talking about cocaine, Thailand. We know these drugs are imported, and a person cannot be a consumer of Thailand and cocaine. I mean, these high psychoactive products without having money.
Of course.
So if you don't have money to fund your addiction, the next thing that you're going to steal. You're going to aggress people. You're going to harass them. So the crime wave has increased, and we see a lot of truancy as far as those that are in schooling is concerned. You find many students, they go to school, they're on their way to school, but they don't arrive at the school campus. They hang around, and a lot of destructive things that are being done by the same, from their houses to the community. They steal around, they aggress people, and some even get into rape, because you cannot separate drugs and crimes.
Okay. You know, you work with youth also in Yaoundé.
Yeah,
do you meet some of them? Do you receive some complaints? Do you find this pattern as described by Apostle in many young people today?
Of course, Mr. Leo. Most of the times it's very often difficult to take the panel after Mr. Apostle Ambe has spoken. I think he has laid the groundwork or the basis of this very much cherished topic to be talked about with young people, and especially in the capital where we talk about Yaoundé. These acts are acts which are being seen every day, especially when you pass through the Post Central to start with. As Apostle Ambe talked about the GUM 99, you see most of those children around that area, they have it in the rapon or something, they inhale. There is this another one which I don't know, some of these guys, they carry the heat on the bottle like that. It's not really shisha, I think they call it shukudai. They put it in the bottle, and those children, they still inhale the same thing. When you go to, you remember last year we carried out a campaign against the fight against drugs and violence in school, with 3 regions: the center region, the littoral region, where we were at the Lycée Bilang de Daido, we were at the Lycée de Aqua, and we went to the southwest. We were in Limbe, we were in Tiko with the GBHS Tiko. So you realize that most of these things in Yaoundé, we were at a college store de Akono in the Mefo and Kono division. We were at a CKC at a Kolfulu in the Mefo Farmer division. We carried out this campaign, and we had a lot of feedback from that campaign. Wherefore, we realized that it is true the consumption of drugs is not good. Not that it's not really good, especially the abuse of drugs. But you ask, one thing we need to find out is, what actually are the causes, or what actually push these children to actually carry out these acts, which are very, very disastrous to their own health, are very, very detrimental to their own health, especially the young people. And we realize that with the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest, the increase of this, a whole lot of increase in the consumption of these drugs. But now, what are the causes? That's what we wanted to find out, and we realized that one of the major causes of this high consumption of drugs is the fact that most of these children, like Apostle actually said, the company you keep around you, because you realize that okay, they leave their houses around 6:30 a.m. in the morning to go to school. There are other friends that they have around the country who don't actually go to school, and they have maybe the day before they have actually arranged something to do out of the class, and you realize that when they meet themselves, when this other one who doesn't go to school is already I don't want to say, well, maybe addicted to the drug, and is called upon to take it, the other one which is by the side will also want to follow the same issue, and as time goes on you realize that he also becomes one of them. Another factor is the fact that these children, the parents back at home is difficult. They have little or no control on them, because if you realize that your child has a company which is not the best one, what do? You need to be almost I won't say behind a child all the time to ensure that it doesn't keep that company, it doesn't go to places you don't actually know. But what were the response from some parents? They were actually behind the teachers, that when the students go to school, they don't make sure that the students are in class. But you need to understand that it's not all about the teachers.
It starts
back at
home.
Mm-hmm. So, but this act has been so eaten the society in such a way that we think that there is really need to combat it, because it is at its height, and especially and with like I was saying, with the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest, you also realize there are some people, or some of these young people who barely have things to do, and for the fact that they stay at home without anything to do, the fact that they have to carry out some acts which are not necessarily, it's so difficult for a normal human being to carry, they will have to drop themselves to a particular level where they'll do it in a very subconscious mind. So some of these factors are really not good for our society and for the young people that we've seen. Okay. We think that there's really need for it.
It is quite disturbing. I have had situations of many things happening to students who were deep into it, unknown to their parents, and the society would not understand. How would you rate the indulgement of students in the consumption of drugs out in Kuma?
Yeah, I can say it is like today when I was leaving the house, the proportion of students I met hanging around, because my house is quite close to a government school. The amount of students I saw, the number of students I saw outside, there are many. And you look at the way they are funny. Already, we're just showing that they are not the good guys. So I can say, if you're looking at the percentage of the youths that are already students that are involved in this, I can say about 35%, which is very disturbing. So I might be talking about 35%. You might look at it, that 35 should be those that you can really see the drugs on them. Because when you talk about addiction, it's not something that begins in a day. So it's a process, and actually there are 5 stages for a person to get addicted. So like when my co-panelist here was talking about parents, beginning with parents, your child can be in the first 2 stages for a very long period of time without you ever knowing. Like talking about experimentation, when the child is at the experimentation stage, where he's just trying to, okay, let me try out this thing. He's not very much giving into it. It's not a regular thing. So he had experimented, the thing is good, the result, the feedback he got from taking it or injecting it to his system is good. So time to time, he makes time out to get, so you can hardly as a parent just know that this person have done this. Before you go now to regular use. From your regular use to risky use. Risky use now comes when the child begin to bring, the other individual begin to bring this substance in a place where he knows he can be endangered. Like a student carrying crack, cocaine, marijuana in his bag to class or to school on campus. You know they see it there, you are in trouble, but you still bring it there. So risky use, the person is using it, it's at risk in a risky environment. And we know that they understand very well that the society doesn't appreciate it. It is not good in their system, for their system. Yet, because of what the benefits from consuming the same, they can carry it even to places where they know.
In Kumba, how does it operate? They know where they go consume it?
Like talking about where they go consume it, as I talk about this, there are some students who are at this stage whereby they move in possession of it. So they can bring it in the school campus and get their friends, and they go to any place that is secluded, and they get themselves there. I had to intervene in one case where a student who had a parlor, the father is deceased. So the grandfather and the father was somebody who is busy working out there, so they had to convert their parlor into a meeting ground. And I met about 7 of them who were held by the uncle who came right from Limbe. They told him they are smoking in your parlor. So when I saw the way it was vibrating, I would destroy you. So I came there and I asked him, do you know me? He said, I know you are pastor. I said, okay. I talked with him and asked him to hand over those guys to me, and he handed them over to me. And I took them closer to it was just beside my church. So I sat them down and I was asking them, how come you carry somebody's parlor, you convert somebody's parlor into your drug center? And spoke to them, started counseling them there. So they do it on campus, they do it in houses, and some of them who have dropped out, they do it in the place where they smoke. There is a this I don't know if you know about Calcutta Republic of Ella.
Yes.
Yeah, there are place hoods that are like Calcutta Republic, where the trade and consumption is done there.
Okay. In Kumba?
Yeah, in Kumba, and also in different places.
Okay.
Mr. Lee, you talk about Kumba, and it reminds me of the last time I was at Bafia. Remember, there has been a very high rate of crime in Bafia of recent. I met one guy, I want to say, well, maybe I'll retain his name. And when I tried to inquire what has actually been the cause of this high rate of crime in Bafia, and he told me this: most of the young people are out of school, and they now take this thing, actually, Apostle Ambe called Caillou. They now take Caillou, which, and the stuff is so expensive, so much that I think he talked about a gram being about 2,000, 2,500 francs, which is something small. You just need to consume maybe at maybe something like that, and it's over. But whenever they inhale the drug or they take the drug, it makes them so so comfortable, so high, so much that they don't want to come out from that very feeling. And in such a way, it keeps them so dependent in such a way that they want to take it all the time. And if they have to do this all the time, and for the fact that it's very expensive, they have no other choice than to steal. That's why he went for that, to explain the fact that you see a child, a very little boy of 16, 17 years, is capable of cutting your hand off. Is capable of telling you that, no, Graham, if you just try a little bit, I will just remove one of your legs here. Because now they have guns. And that explains
in that different spiritual world described by Apostle. But Apostle, when we look around, especially in Douala, you find so many mothers, so many young girls smoking. Is that the introduction into that process? And the fact that most who are smoking around are already deep into some of these activities?
Yeah, we are talking about illicit drugs.
Yes.
There are also legal drugs. These are drugs permitted by the law. Alcohol, caffeine. Those are drugs that the government permits. Nicotine, government permits nicotine. They permit caffeine. They permit alcohol. These are drugs. So this is a foundation. A drug is a drug. Whether we try to legalize it, we try to make it proper, we try to make it look acceptable, palatable, a drug is a drug. And every drug is a foundation. Anybody you see deep in cocaine is somebody who has been in caffeine for a very long time. Anybody you see entering into Indian hemp and shooting drugs in their system, they have been in nicotine for some time, because those things create an urge in you. I've smoked cigarette. Cigarette has nicotine, and it gets to a point where you start smoking cigarette, it becomes addicted to your system, that when you don't have cigarette, it looks like you are not okay. As a matter of fact, somebody will get up at 2 a.m. in the morning to go and look for cigarette in the street. That's your system already becoming addicted. The more you look for cigarette, you don't see it, you look for anything smokable. The first I tasted Indian hemp was when we went to harvest plum in the farm, and there was no cigarette. The only thing that was available was Indian hemp. I had to replace Indian hemp with cigarette. I know the world is very surprised to see Apostle saying this, but I passed through that. That's why I say I'm going to explain it publicly. When we were harvesting plum in the bush, I asked for cigarette. My system began demanding for cigarette. There was no cigarette. What was available was Indian hemp, and I was forced to take it. You realize that by nicotine, my system had adapted to a level where it needed something like smoke in it. So in the absence of that crocodile, I had to manage the little that was available. That was how I plunged myself into. So whether we make the drug legal or whatever the government legalizes it, it is a foundation for addiction. The day you look for alcohol, you will not see it. You look for something else to substitute. The day you look for nicotine, you don't see it. You look for something else to substitute. The day you look for caffeine, you don't see it. You look for something else to substitute. So these foundations are the things that cause the drugs to start. Parents, we talk about young people. It's not only young people. Yeah. There are places in this city you go there, people of repute, let me not mention some kind of top government officials who go and sit there. They drug and leave their vehicles there for 1.2 million. They drug and leave their cars, car key. They drug and leave checks. They drug, people drug for 500,000 per day. Now, there's this Thailand. This Thailand, they buy a shot for 1,300 because it is too small. They buy in their hand for 100 and drop it on it so they can sustain it. So each time he takes it is 1,400 francs the young man spends, and he's not working anything. And he has to consume at least 4 times a day to meet his demand. Now, estimated amount of 1,400 times 4. We are talking about 5,000 something or 5,600 thereabout. A young man that does not have a salary, even a civil servant who spends 5,600 francs a day, not for food, not for clothing, but for drugs to shoot in a system, you must be financially buoyant. And that's the reason why the effect of drugs we are going to be talking about, they are enormous. Now, we recently hear of gendarmes arresting young men who go to graves and dig bones of dead people. Do you know that the bones of dead men are used to fabricate drugs? They grind those bones to powder, they mix them with chemical, and they smoke it. I'm talking as somebody who has delivered a group of young men who came to my church for prayers and submitted to me that they were the ones, when the man grinds the bone and mix with chemical, they're the ones who test it to see whether it is of good quality. These are people who have testified. So when you hear that they say bones were dug in the grave, you've heard gendarmes arresting people here about, it's the drug. It's the drug. And they become so desperate in it in such a way that a man will prefer to spend 1,400 to drug than to buy a plate of food. You look, they're very cranky, very pale, very shattered, haggard. Yet they are so attached to the thing in such a way that they find pleasure in nothing else. And the funny thing that most of them who take those drugs don't drink alcohol because they are dealing with something very high, so alcohol cannot meet their demand. And that's the reason when you smoke and you drug the more, you keep looking for harder drugs. Harder drugs. I'm going to be talking about different kinds of drugs and their quality, their capacity and their strength, because not every drug has the same power.
Okay. Yes, in Kumba, who are those involved? You say you are rating the percentage of students possibly involved in this situation at 35%. Yeah. Yes, but we are talking about across all circles in our national life. Do we have very high-profile persons when you go around where they smoke it? I'm talking about tear.
Yeah. Okay.
Kumba has a tear now.
Is it not? It's not a tear.
Okay.
They have tears.
They have tears now.
When you go around there, do you find or meet responsible persons? Do they come to you for assistance?
Okay, now you see, like the very first symposium we had on drugs, we had some people who could not come because of our location. They were afraid of public eyes since the location was within the residence. So, and they knew that this was a program for psychoeducation on drugs. And so parking my car and coming there or coming in my uniform will make people to understand, oh, so this person also is a victim. So, talking about looking across the cross-section of the population, who are the kind of persons that are involved in it, we can say people of nearly every walk of life. Because like this guy I was talking about, if hadn't been he continued until he graduated and he's posted as a teacher, he would have been a teacher who is on drugs. So we have people of nearly all walks of life. Example, there was during this scene, I have those ones on very short clips, because they do introduction at times when we sit in a symposium. You stand, tell your name and what you do. And you'll be surprised when you begin to get their professions, some of which have abandoned, because we'll be talking about the consequence. Some have actually abandoned their jobs because of the toll that the particular drugs have had on them. So they can't coordinate themselves any longer to have a normal, functional, professional life and family life. So here I was a former. I am a graduate in biochemistry. We were the first batch from this Polytech, and we did electrical engineering. I am a you hear people, it's not like people who are careless. At times I'm giving the lectures, some of them are even completing what I'm about saying. Like I remember one young guy, I think he should be just around 19 years, and I was talking with him, and before we say a thing, when I was talking about psychedelics and hallucinogens, I saw the way he was just finishing it from my mouth. And I asked him, he told me he was writing advanced level, and he was a son of a commissioner. We've gotten people, somebody has come to me, man in uniform, and he brought me, Pastor, please help me. And they came on a special task. Yes. And I told him, if you don't cooperate, remove the uniform on your body. I said, because look at how you are already. Finished. Even others, clergy.
Men of God.
Now, when we begin to talk about this, now there is an aspect we didn't talk about, like talking about psychological triggers.
This is something.
Psychological and emotional triggers.
Are you saying that pastors themselves take it?
For sure. Anybody can be a victim to drugs. When a person finds himself in a kind of stressful condition, or acute anxiety, or depression, and he does not meet the appropriate quota to be able to help him out, some of them resort in taking substances that might calm them or alleviate the stress that they are going through for the moment. And by experimenting with that, or because of that relief they get at that instant, it's really registered in their memory, especially when you start something like cocaine or take something. Anything that can help you get an ecstasy. You see, there is this chemical in your brain, dopamine, which is a feel-good hormone. When it is registered in your mind, what you felt when you took this thing, so it began to place a demand on it. By the time, so something was registering in my spirit that this man is not. So they told me, he said, this other pastor is your friend now, and this other person who is a driver is your friend now. I said, so go and get his marriage picture. This man was the best man to this your friend, and was the associate pastor to this other man of God. But I met him in the hoods.
Smoking.
He doesn't go to church, he doesn't go anywhere. So he told me he was into, he entered, as I said, drugs, gender, other vices. He had graduated from all what he was taking due to what he went through, because he told me it was still an emotional crisis that led him to drugs. From there he backslided, that self-condemnation and guilt. He had nobody that could help him out. So then he just backslided, entered into scamming. And he told me, when I entered this town, I entered with a car and with 28 million. But he was sleeping on carton.
Because of drugs. Yeah, how do we explain the surge in this phenomenon amongst youth, women, almost everybody? Is it the fact that enough education is not going through on media or in our schools, or the fact that parents are not attentive enough, or teachers are failing, or the fact that those who are into the business, what are they doing to convince and win more souls into that activity?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Actually, you've put these factors together, and I will tell you that it's a combination of the factors you've just enlisted. The people who sell, they don't care if it's harmful to your health or not. They want to make money. Parents are there which you want to say, okay, they're supposed to look after the children to ensure that, okay, they don't get into such company, they don't get their hands on these drugs and the like. But you will not want to hold every parent responsible. They also have other things to do. It is of the place of the young people to understand that, no, these issues are things that are very disastrous to our own health. What do we need to do, and how do we actually get out of it? And if we have to go, like I said before, we had a campaign, a 6 months campaign with some of these young people, and we actually got that at a point in time you realize that we have to make a distinction between drug and drug abuse. But like we said before at the beginning, drug and drug abuse. Why? Because there are some people who actually get into drug, but there is a level which, like you said, there are some that are found in our ordinary day drugs that we consume, and there are others who actually abuse it. And when you abuse it, there are stages now that you start getting. It's like an echelon now. You know, the start here, the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. But we have to understand that these factors are being put together before it comes to a stage where you understand that it's an abuse. The authorities that be, how do these people who sell them smuggle them into the towns? Because most of the times you realize that most of the big cities are full with these people that think that they're making a lot of money from it. They don't want to care about your health or not. How did they get into it? Where are they? There are places where we've seen, I think in the West region, where the governor at a point in time, I think sometime last year, went and destroyed a whole farm of marijuana. And you see in some of these places, and those people who actually even transport it, there are some people, officers, uniform officers, who actually realize that these things are passing. Because how do we get, I don't know if we manufacture cocaine in this country. I think most of them is being imported. How did they get into the country? So it's a blame to be shared. But if we have to share this blame, it is of interest of the person who is concerned to actually think about it. But what am I doing to my own self? At what point am I heading to, or where am I heading to? So it is something which we cannot say one person has actually, or one person is to be held responsible, but it is of the principal person who is concerned to be someone to think that what is of interest to me.
Yeah, it is true that at different levels some persons are not doing what is expected, like the security officials who themselves are also involved, like what you just said, that there are some of them who come to you. So imagine that one who is consuming it sees it, that is what he needs, so he will look for ways for it to come. But what explains this mad surge in it? Almost majority of students are getting into it. The rate at which young girls get into smoking today is frightening. What is pushing them?
That I want to be very frank with you, if we have to be honest, our society. And there are so many things that surround, when I talk about our society, I look at it from a bigger picture. These children are supposed to be in the classrooms studying, but you realize that maybe the teacher is not in class, he was not paid, or he or she is not paid. I'm not just pushing, I don't want to push the blame, but let's look at it from a realistic point of view. Why is it supposed to be, why is it that this student who is not in class, who is supposed to be in class, is not in class and is consuming the drug somewhere? Why is it, what happened? Maybe the parents don't have money to pay for the children to go to school. They have school fees that have been driven away from school, from classes, from the classroom. The other ones, they will tell you, oh, I have a degree, I have a master's degree, I have this, I have no job. I have to ride a bike, and on the bike, at a point in time, I'll need to feel so high so that I don't feel the cold. At a point in time, we realize that most at times, the mad rush for this is due to the societal ills that actually the people or the young people are facing. If we have to go down to earth to say some of these things, it is true that it is not the best thing to do. But let's look at it from a critical point of view. If you sample most of the opinions, it's true that they might not have a reason to put it forward. But if you go into it,
now, when you say it is they are justifying it on their conditions of life, is it better with children from well-to-do families? No, is it better? No. Yeah. So what is it? Because one may say that it is out of frustration, but let us get into this rich class. Either those who are well paid, they have fat jobs here, yes, and then their children are also living well. They lack almost nothing. What is driving them into this?
To me, the first thing is that drug is a yearning for a vacuum in you that must be filled. There is an emptiness in man that needs to be filled. And once that emptiness is there, they begin to look now for means to fill that thing within them. And that's the reason why they start running helter-skelter. A clear example, if you read Ayuki Ama's The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born, the moral decadence in Ghana resolved most of the youth into consumption of weed, heroin, cannabis, amphetamine, as well as cocaine. Why was that? Because the situation in the country was that really bad. There was a yearning in the hearts of the youths. They needed something to fill that vacuum in them. And so they began running after drugs. If you see those people who go after drugs a lot in this age, especially students who go after drugs, because we have different categories of people. We are talking about the youth, particularly students who go after drugs. We have elderly people who also go after drugs. We have those who are in offices of responsibility. They need to take this drug to be emboldened to address certain things. Some of them take these drugs in order to face the audience. Some take this drug also to address very pertinent things. There are also offices in the country you cannot occupy until you are on drug, because for them, they draw boldness by taking these drugs to handle certain things. I know of many principals who smoke Indian hemp. I have grown in the town of Mutengene, and that's one of the places where you can vouch that there's a high consumption of drugs. I have so many young men and friends who smoke Indian hemp, who go after the Thailand, who go after cocaine, amphetamine, heroin, cannabis, and the rest. Why are these young men yearning after these drugs? To me, one is frustration. When people become frustrated in life, they find solace in living in a world beyond the natural. They want to live beyond the ills of the society. They want to live beyond their frustration, their disappointment. So someone believes that if he doesn't have money and he takes his Indian hemp, he can take him out of that nonsense. Just the same way somebody can take alcohol in order to go out of a psychological trauma. So when they sit, they are jobless, they are idle, they have no finances, they have no means, they have no children. That frustration, they will just be left to take drugs so that they get out of that mess. And now they get so frustrated when they come back to their senses and start seeing the reality of their frustration. They must always touch the drug again so that they get out, because drugs take you out of the natural. They keep you in a world of your own. As a matter of fact, everything becomes very normal. And that's the reason why you see anybody who has taken drugs is always smiling, because there is no problem. There's nothing disturbing them. The economic crisis people are seeing, they are not seeing. The hunger you are seeing, they are not seeing. The war you are seeing, they are not seeing. It doesn't concern them. So they live in a world of their own, and then they enjoy that world. When they come back again and start seeing the reality of the problems around them, they dive back into the drug to get out of the societal challenges. I think that is one of the primary reasons why most people take drugs. As a matter of fact, most people are not courageous to do things with their clear eyes.
Sure.
Some persons can only do well or confront certain issues when they drug. So because of that, they are bold to take drugs. You would be surprised to say a guy can drug to go and talk to a girl. There are men who are not bold enough to confront a lady like this, say, hey, I love you. He needs to take a drug to confront a lady and tell her that I love you. So you realize that people take drugs for so many reasons, but this thing has to do, either they are emboldening themselves or probably they are trying to walk out of their frustrations.
Okay, they're walking out of their frustrations. I'll take some messages. Good evening and thanks for this educative life-saving topic on the search in illicit drugs and consumption in Cameroon. Today, the Social Healing and Development Foundation, SOHEDEF, has a free document to help advocate against the societal, to help them in their sensitization campaign. If interested, please contact this number through WhatsApp or direct call for documents to reach you free of charge. Okay, you say you are fighting drugs. Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu, and all of you in the studio. Please, what I want to say is that most of these guys who take these drugs are highly believing that whenever they take it, it gives them the courage to do whatever they want to do. And when we see them at that time, only the way of talking and doing things, even a little child will be able to dictate them. Please, I think the government needs to do something about all these drugs, because young boys and girls, their ways of developing courage is beyond repair. Mr. Liu, how can this stop when forces of law and order go and collect money from drug sellers? In Kumba, okay, we have St. John Graveyard. Valley is writing from Barombi. Greetings, Mr. Liu and panelists. To some extent, the armed forces are promoting drugs, taking and marketing. There is a smoking and trading camp of different drugs brands at checkpoint around Solidarity Hospital. It is highly patronized by military. It's really a call for concern. Camp Kelvin is writing from checkpoint in Boya. Okay, Camp Kelvin says there is a trading camp and smoking camp around checkpoint behind Solidarity Hospital in Boya. Another person says there is one around Kumba, St. John Grief. Okay, this is known by everybody. Good evening, Mr. Liu. All the panelists, I plead to the powers that be to help us fight this ill from the source. By this, I mean those who manufacture them. Some of us parents are really helpless. Please, for Prince Will's number. Peter is writing from Limbe. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Your program is very educative. Mr. Liu, in some primary stage, many children take drugs secretly without the knowledge of their parents. I suggest the government should give full power, the responsibility to landlords and quarterheads to fight against drug abuse, because these things are not done in space. Okay, this one is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and please kindly extend my greetings to Apostle Ambe, whom I met, and we talked about this topic. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it as I was invited to be one of the panelists. I hope to make it some other time. Dr. Atanga Boa writing there. I don't know where you're writing from, but yes, Apostle Ambe, you see persons in communities, they're saying that around checkpoint behind Solidarity there is, they call it, I don't know whether they call it tear or what. Now they tell you that around St. John in graveyard in Kumba, it is there. How can we claim to be fighting this when we know these places exist, highly patronized by persons within our respective communities because we pass and see them?
Drug is business, and in Cameroon, business is business. Most of the authorities that were supposed to fight those drugs are being bought because much money is being paid. Most of the drug lords who supply to the younger generation and the persons whom they supply to, most of the people who supply don't take the drug, because the protocol in the drug business that you who supplies, you don't consume. Because if you consume, the addiction within you will cause you to smoke the capital you have in your pocket. So most of the people are supplying, they don't consume. I know of persons who have been supplying drugs for some time, but they have very tight connections with the commissioner, the commandant general of that environment. They give them huge sums of money, and the commandant gives a deaf ear and a blind eye to whatever is happening there. So you discover that the individuals in question have been bought. Then you go to the place they call tear, you see military people sitting there and consuming it, because when you are trained in the military academy, they shoot the drug in your system as part of the injections that they train you with. And sometimes some people, when they consume it for some time, it becomes too small to contain. They have to maintain it. Whether we like it or not, people are being trained in military academy, and the injections they give them is drug to stir them up. And sometimes when war comes out like that, they increase the dosage in order to ginger them so that they can be able to confront the enemy. With what is happening in the country right now, both sides are being gingered. The military is gingered, the boys also in the bushes are also gingered. And when they are gingered, the ginger gets very high. So on both ends there is gingering. And that's the reason why the thing spreads so wide. As a matter of fact, with the coming of the Anglophone crisis, many young people who were not consumers are now consuming. Because why? You need to be high to be able to confront what you are going to confront.
Apostle Ambe, we cannot confirm that the military is gingered. We cannot confirm. It's something official that the military is gingered.
I lived in Mutengene.
Okay.
And there's a police academy there. The police always take injection. I don't know whether injection is for sickness or for headache or for what, but from time to time they are injected. So with the voices in quotes in the bushes, also now, you know what they do, they cannot just come out like that. You must be emboldened. If you have never drunk, I have taken Indian hemp. I know what it does. It kills fear in you. That's what it does. What you hear about full courage. A man that has taken drug and bubble here, if you take the drug out of it, you ask him what happened. Why am I the one who reacted in that manner? Because it gives you a false courage. So with what is happening right now, most people, I went through a documentary about the Sierra Leonean war. Child soldiers were forced to carry guns, not because they actually wanted to carry guns. The first thing they did was to drug them. They introduced them to drug. Yeah. So child soldiers are first of all trained to consume drug. When they consume the drug, now the fear of death dies. The boldness to carry a gun and press the trigger now comes alive, because it comes to stimulate your adrenaline. It kills fear in you, because that's what drug does. Because they say adrenaline prepares the body for fight or flight. So if at all you take in the drug now, it prepares and gingers your adrenaline, emboldens you to the extent that you can see somebody who is drunk or drunk in, he will talk to you anyhow, but if you take the drug from his eyes becomes very clear. See people who are even drunk, common alcohol, bottle of alcohol, he will tell you, get out, an idiot. That is a drug at a certain level. That is it. So if we want to understand the implication and the operation of drug, you understand that most of those who consume drugs, they take it for several reasons. As a matter of fact, we may not be able to count the number of reasons. Those who are depressed take drugs. Those who want to be courageous take drugs. Those who are frustrated, they take drugs. Those who want to achieve something, they take drugs. Those who need energy, they take drugs. So drug, everybody has a reason that is taking drugs. But the truth is, some people jump into it out of excitement because the way they have been told. Somebody can take it and say, God, tu as goûté ça, goûté alors, goûté, tu vas voir. Ça va te mettre une dimension que tu vas oublier tous tes problèmes. As immediately they explain that, the person finds himself into it. There are people who are lecturers of drugs. They will tell you, because the very first that I ever took a stick of cigarette was a friend of mine that told me that take it like this, it say, make a so. When I made like this, my eye made like this, ooh, oh, I just got so fine. I became an evangelist, and I preached to the next person close to me. I said, boy, if you take that here, I go turn. So the mother, that's how I grew up, began smoking cigarettes. And then it starts like a little chain of reaction. You take it, you wait. After 2 days, you take it. And then it comes to a level you start taking it within after hours. After minutes, sometimes at late in the night, you are forced to go out. You become a chain smoker. Now, thank God for Jesus who came and singled me out among so many people and brought me out of that danger. So I have lived within the cycle of those who take drugs.
Okay, I want us to take a look at a video that was sent to me now by somebody who is watching us from the United Arab Emirates, and we comment on it after that.
That means I look the Christmas, means I wash. Gee! That means I wash my hand. I say, I go to Limbe, we go see what they happen for Limbe, we go see the junkie life. Gee! And Caillou, Chichamo, they form devotion song, them, but they're picking them.
Because
they sing, that is a bad thing. Caillou is a bad thing. Look at Uncle Martin. Caillou made him to be a fool. Oh, baby, and he was sing that you go to go graduate, guy will invest, they give a certificate of non-drug. We the whole of your skills, so you need shake. Even I want them know beautiful way the whole your certificate of your skill when people want to find work, because if you don't look out more time, you know get work. If you don't get some certificate of proof and say no, you just get certificate of non-drug no. If you use them in fire employment, I swear. If you use them, that means for many purposes, even as on your man or if you embarrassment, remove your certificate, show you making me know oh petit at the beg, oh, we need to sensitize the junkies them, the way they happen, we will come even at church. We do drug evangelism, we evangelize with the junkies, them sensitize them. Oh, if you don't involve anybody, project more. Wash, oh, papa. They need to respect their family. Oh, no, wait till they happen. Tell them about the app of drug, hijack, poverty, pains, and prison. They know, yeah. Oh. I swear. Oh, and the beg. Oh, the one they don't stop them. I swear. Don't be violence, don't be law. Oh, the one they call a civilization. They feel control and control. Change, junkies. Mama, yeah.
Can you identify, can you understand, can we feel what these guys are going through?
Yes, Mr. Leo. As for the young man who is talking, I know him. His name is Fu. He lives in Muteng, and I used to go to GBHS Tico. I saw him when he started growing in front of me. A very brilliant young man that was in GBHS Tico. Smart, young, barefoot guy. Our house was about 100 meters from their house. So he's been doing videos of that sort, many. And it's not surprising because he has a junior brother who is not into drugs. The guy is sound. You realize that this young man, he was introduced to drugs because of the company he kept. As a matter of fact, from their house to what we call Te, that is the smoking ground, is about some 100 meters. So it was easier for him to hang around the guys who were smoking. That's how he entered into. So when he finally entered into it, it has now resolved to this level that it looks like he's mentally deranged. Because I didn't see anything sensible from what he was saying. Even they was passing a message that he should preach it from primary school to secondary school against drug. That drug is very bad. They should have the certificate of
Involvement, not consumption of drugs.
No consumption of drugs. So you realize that this young man, the environment he grew also influenced his involvement into the drug stuff. And I can tell you, such a brain is damaged. We used to say the most damaged part of the human body is the brain. If your hand is not there, you can still function. If your eyes are not there, you can still function. If your ears are not there, you can still function. When the brain is damaged, it's damaged. So when you hear him talk like that, he's preaching, he's passing a sermon that he should carry out evangelism against drug, because drug is very bad. Drug is a bad thing. Cannabis is a bad thing. Thai is a bad thing. Kayu is a bad thing. You see, that's what that is an example of the message he's preaching. That's the resultant effect of people who consume drugs. It's so damaging. As a matter of fact, this is one amongst 1 million that we still have in the nation Cameroon. One amongst 10 million that we have in the nation Cameroon. So it's so bad. I think we have to put stringent measures in the society in order to curb the spread of drugs. As a matter of fact.
Okay. Let me take some messages that are coming in from our televiewers this evening. Good evening, Leo and panelists. Two other compounds, tetrahydrocannabivarin, THCV, and cannabidiol, CBD, have been shown to have benefits for blood sugar control and metabolism in diabetes studies. Furthermore, study details and findings of people suffering from epilepsy of those given medicinal cannabis with marijuana, more than 40% had their seizures halved. Okay, 5% became epilepsy seizure free. It is important that in a public information medium like this, it should not just be demonized. It is the number treatment of epilepsy in North America. Thanks, Dr. Wesley Angoni, writing there. But Apostle Ambe did mention in the beginning of the program that these are also prescribed. He also enumerated the good sides of some of these drugs, but says that we are talking about abuse. We're talking about abuse here, where these drugs are taken to the level where we are destroyed. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all. To me, I think the number one reason for drugs is peer pressure. Then others for boldness, like musicians, military, etc. Then frustration. Baldwin is writing from Boya. But what happens to these rich folks and their kids? Are they frustrated? Are they? Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Liu and your panelists. I must admit to you that I see military men always coming and buying theirs. I stay around the neighborhood in Bamenda where all these are sold. Instead of the men in uniform arresting the perpetrators, they join them to smoke. Only God will help us. Good evening, Mr. Kum and co. Alcoholism and drug consumption is a way of escaping one's reality. This idea of one getting high before facing one's existential realities is downright erroneous. We need to understand that drugs can never solve our problems. Building a strong mind in people, even from childhood days, can help us deal with this issue of drugs consumption. Terence is writing from Ngaundal. Good evening, Mr. Liu. In my opinion, Bad Company is one of the most available platforms for producing drug consumers. I'm a pastor, but in my early stage in life, I was influenced by Bad Company to smoke cigarettes, but by the intervention of my mother, I was delivered from it. Thank God. Bishop Ndingi GM, writing from Douala. Apostle Ambe, this is also another man of God who consumes it like yourself. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My greetings to all the panelists in the studio. Drugs issue in this country is becoming alarming because some government officials are involved, because it gives them good amount of money. I support what Apostle Ambe is saying. In mile 16, you will see military coming to collect money from the drug sellers instead of arresting them for selling the drugs. James is writing from Boya. Why is the fact that almost everybody knows where these guys are selling? If the military cannot arrest them, they are selling them within communities. Can the communities not mobilize themselves to chase them out? I know that for some time in Bomaka, the community came out, chased the guys, had some of them well beaten, and said that they did not want to get them around the community because strange things were happening. Yeah. Why can communities, or what are you doing to get communities to see how to solve them? Because seemingly you go and preach in this text. Are you helpless?
To an extent, because when you look at the forces behind the whole activities, you understand that if the government, or let me just not talk about just calling government, it's so global, these very actors, you get the text message, they say this, they find men in uniform, protecting, coming to the places, coming to collect their shares, and you as an individual, one-man squad, what backing do you have? I remember somebody asked me one day, a uniform officer introduced me to others, say this man is doing a great job, he works with these guys, and he has results. And what he turned and asked me, do you think you can stop drug consumption in this Kumba, or even in Cameroon? And I told him, my work is not to stop drug. I said, I'm working with drug abusers. I said there are two things. There are two things: drug abuse and drug traffic. Yeah. I said drug traffic is your duty. Drug abuse is my duty. I said we are trying to recover our children and our people who've been taken by these things. I said because most of the substances that the people are hooked up to are not produced here. The cannabis, the cocaine, the heroin, the meth, the Thailand, the crack, all of those things are coming from outside. And I asked who are the keepers. I said either come by air, by land, by water. Who are the ones protecting all of these entry points? You are the ones. So if you cannot stop it, you shouldn't be asking me, do you think you can stop? And so we'll keep on carrying out our activities and bringing a rescue to those that are cooperating with us, because not everybody also is going to cooperate. We already understand that not everybody will cooperate with us.
Of course.
Okay, not everybody is going to cooperate. There are two places in Old Town where they sell all this trash. The paradox is that this quarter is a neighbor to the public security. Glennis is writing from Bomenda. Yes, are we helpless? Is the community also helpless? Because let us say that this the elements of forces of law and order are not helping the situation. Each quarter has a village has a traditional ruler now. Of course. Then the quarters have quarter heads. Are they helpless themselves because their children are the ones consuming?
Mr. Leo, if I have to be sincere with your question, are we helpless? Then I should be looking at this from two different dimensions. Okay. Because talking about are we helpless, quarter heads, the village coming out to chase these boys, then you should be making two different distinctions. I don't know, most of the times some of this drug abuse is being associated to armed robbery, other errors in the society and the like. But what happens at the point where maybe you have your son in your house and he consumes it, but he doesn't indulge himself in some of these acts, like he doesn't get with bandits and the likes and the like. You chase him out of the village? So to me, I think that what is most important is not to look at the reasons why they, but there are two different things we should take into consideration. One is, what are actually the causes?
I think for the case of Bumaka, the guys involved in the selling were the ones that were attacked and beaten and sent out of the,
Yes, of course there are cases like that. I will not want to turn it down. There are often cases like that. But we look at majority.
Do we not know where these things?
Mr. Leo. Okay, let me be very practical with you. We don't know where they fabricate fighter. Don't we know? We don't know where there's statobag. Fighter. Some of these drugs are like fighter. They take overdose. That's why we talk about abuse to an extent. And what abuse?
Alcohol is legalized.
That is what we are saying. But when you take it to an extent, how some of this is gum not legalized to be sold in the community to use to mend your shoe and other things, but they use it for different purposes. So we should be careful as we are looking at it. There is somebody who will tell you that marijuana is about 99% one of the best cure for pains. One of 99% painkiller. They have their own. Like somebody just wrote to you one of the televiewers who actually told you that no, you shouldn't talk about this. That is why I'm looking at it from another perspective, not necessarily from another perspective. Because if we have to go that, okay, don't they know where these people sell these things? Why are they not actually? If we really have to go by that way, then we will not be touching the how to resolve this issue, how to help the community.
But is that not also one of the ways of solving it?
Yeah, it's one of the ways, but
in most of these, if we have, that's why I said if we have to be honest, and we have to if we want to look for the root causes and solutions to this.
Take the case of this Zwaza when it invaded Cameroon, and the government decided to stop the supply chain. It evaporated because once it is available, many customers will go for it. Yeah. There was a time that it was effectively stopped in Cameroon, and when they opened the route, it started flooding our markets in Cameroon. And so, why is it difficult for us to stop it?
The issue is not the people who are supplying it. How do they get it to supply it? Mm-hmm. The borders of this country, through the road, the air, and the sea, are channels through which those things enter here. How did they successfully pass through those places to enter into the country? That's where we have to start. Number two, addiction is something inside your system. If they chase the individuals who sell that drug, let's say in Bange, the people who are consuming those drugs will go to Musilili to look for it, because it becomes part of you. You depend on it. You live on it. The withdrawal syndrome is very difficult because the man lives practically his life on that thing. So that's the reason why if somebody is supposed to be withdrawn from drugs, if care is not taken, most of them end up committing suicide, because you have taken them out of what keeps them alive, what sustains them, what they rely on.
What they think.
So I think the idea of stopping the drugs in the society first has to do with the control of the entry of drugs into the country. The government has that responsibility. The second thing we have to do is that they have to carry out serious campaign, because I think people are not educated enough. When HIV came into this continent, people who had it were disdained, despised, and were relegated to the background. But when campaign was carried to a certain extent, families began accepting their members who had HIV, friends began accepting their friends, and people even accepted to get married to those who had HIV. That was because sensitization carried out within those regions brought to a place that HIV is not a curse. HIV is not something we take, we must carry it. It's not something that somebody cannot be associated with when he has HIV. Because of that sensitization, you and I now are free to even eat in the same plate. But when HIV came, you could not even sit around where somebody had HIV, because you would think maybe if they cough, you will have it. But that was not the means of transmission. You may be afraid to eat them in the same plate. But this time around, those who have HIV eat in the same plate, people work in the same company because of sensitization. I think the idea of drug abuse has not gone through the society. Serious campaign should be carried in schools. It should be carried in symposiums. I mean, churches, anywhere that gathers people. They should do intensive campaign against drug. I think if they give people a picture of the consequences and the damages of drugs in the society, and then bring individuals who have once been through and then testify, and equally give examples of those who are into it and how they look like, somebody will be afraid to attempt to even get it, because human beings are controlled by what they hear and what they see. The psychology of humans can easily direct their actions. I think if we show the consequences and the damages of drugs in society, and we bring individuals who have been trapped in that dilemma and present them to others, nobody will want to get into it. And that's it.
So,
yeah,
but can I add something, Mr. Leo?
No, let him come.
Yeah.
I want us to look at the consequences. What has become of great persons who are victims of this that you are working with after they got so involved in it?
Yeah, there are persons like those who were in school, especially those who were in higher institutions of learning, who actually, like the case I cited at the beginning, who have dropped and they are just there in the neighborhood doing nothing, becoming a liability to the house, to the family. You have those that were working, actually some of them even working with the government, who just dropped from their, abandoned their duty posts, and they're also just lingering around. We have others who were business people involved in businesses, and they have spent their entire capital on drugs, and you find them now being wretched. They are unable to even pay rents, and you find them staying and sleeping where these drugs are sold. So you start realizing that there are people that are falling from grace to grass due to drugs. and they are a shadow of what they used to be. You see a person who used to be a very clean, somebody respectable, or they know that this person, that kind of person that will pass in the quarters in Yangaman. But you look at him, he's shabby, wretched, unkempt, just as this guy was talking in that short clip, that they should tell them that they should brush their teeth, they should get up in the morning and beat themselves. You see somebody who used to be a very clean and well-kept somebody is now looking like a mad person.
Okay, he's now looking like a mad person. Mr. Liu, no one can ever win a drug war like in many advanced countries. One of the ways to solve it, especially the case of wheat, cannabis, marijuana, which has many medicinal benefits, is to legalize it, tax it, and control its distribution. That is Dr. Wesley. Yes, but I don't know. The issue is that is also a point of making it legal. But now, how do you control cases of addiction? Because you make it legal, and how do you control?
Let me say something.
Yeah. It's like the beer and the fighters. You said.
When you asked the question here, and that is what I was trying to say, because you say, how do we help the society to come out from this situation?
You will come to that. I want us to address this. If you don't talk about, we go to where you are going to.
Yeah, that particular viewer seemed to be writing out of Cameroon. Is
yes,
that
Dr. Wesley? He's in the US.
Okay. Now, a person called me from the US after following our activity and asked me a question. He asked me, what do you have to say about marijuana, most especially, and with it being called the tree of life, as some pastors also are calling it the tree of life in the US. So you see, when they used to say, if you cannot beat them, join them. I think it's just a kind of defeatist statement, that is, we cannot overcome this. But I was trying to explain to her, I said, listen, normalizing it is not a solution to it. Because I was just looking at the statistics as we're coming, as of 2009. It is the CDC report. 250 people were dying every day because of drug consumption. I will talk about drug consumption, I mean in all of their varieties. Drug-related death. 250 a day. So myself, when I saw that, I said, oh, we're talking about people migrating into the US every day, but one day they are going to have a kind of population crisis if they are dying at this rate because of drugs. So legalizing it is no solution, because talking about legalizing marijuana and taxing it doesn't solve the problem. We'll still be losing potential, youths, leaders. Because what even drove me mad into this campaign to fight against drug and to carry out conscientization and sensitization on the adverse effects of drugs is because of the future. You look at the kind of persons that are taken by this thing. People with great destiny, great potential. I want to say also, but one of the reasons why these drugs have entered into many circles freely is because we have thrown God out of many circles.
Yes.
And America is a nation that is trying to kick God out of their society. Because if a person understands that your body is a temple of God, and you understand that you are a sacred being, and you understand that this body is your house, the house of your spirit man, you will not defile it.
Okay, you will not defile it. Eli, can we take a look at this video sent to us by a viewer? So many persons are watching and are sending videos. Okay, seemingly it's not ready. Eli, is the video ready? Can we take a look at it? Okay.
And life with your grandparents was good?
Yeah, it was real good. I didn't feel lonely anymore. They brought me clothes, shoes, anything I wanted.
So now I live downtown LA. I was a prostitute, and I'm a crackhead.
You do crack?
Yeah.
And where do you stay? You're in a tent?
No, I just walk the streets all night and day. Yeah.
And
I'm a clone.
oh, did I already talk to you?
No.
You sure I haven't talked to you?
No.
I think I have.
No.
All right.
Yeah, I lost my voice.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing that. I lost my voice because, they don't want me to say much. Or,
How'd you lose your voice?
Basically, you know what I'm saying? I go so hard, I tell the truth so much. The truth is out there.
Yes, Apostle Ambe, I don't know. You react to what we are saying. These are severe cases, because when we talk about drug, many persons think that it's just consuming at a low rate, but we could resort to what we are saying here.
That is psychosis.
Mr. Leo, have you not realized that most of the people who see their drug consume, they are mentally deranged already? That's a mental deranged case. A friend of mine lived in Canada for 9 years, and he was deep into alcohol. And he was taken to a rehabilitation center where he met people who have been taking drugs for some time. He told me that only the faces of those who have been taking drugs, he told them that is okay. That is, you take him out of that place. It looks like a lion's den that he had entered, and then he was counting his days. He said he was sleeping and thinking that he will not get up in the morning. That someone who just took fox like it and pierced his heart in him, because the guys look very wild, shabby. I mean, they look something else. That thing suddenly, it turns you into a beast. Drugs transform human into monsters. We have a society that, I was listening to Sowore Ewane. She said, if he becomes the president of Nigeria, will legalize Indian. Oh yes, Sowore said that. One of the presidential candidates of Nigeria said he will legalize Indian. Look at Filaram Sonkuti in Nigeria. Yeah. What the Kalakuta Republic. A man goes on stage with pant. I mean, what are we trying to communicate here? And these drugs are in round, like I said. We have the cannabis, we have the heroin, we have the cocaine, we have the methamphetamine, we have all the Caillou and the Thailand, and they are in different ranks, and the potency of those drugs differ. Look at the case of this girl that you showed now. That is a very high level of drug, and so she injects herself. Because there's a level you come, you can no longer inhale, you can no longer consume, you can no longer sniff it inside, you just inject yourself. And then when it is not there, I mean, you start, like Dr. Njinkeng said, is psychosis.
Yeah.
That means the girl is psychotic.
Yeah.
She's just, I mean, her system is, my God.
Yeah, now, how do we, Dr. Angoni, writing from America, thinks that the best is to legalize? Yes, and then control. How do you legalize and control? How do you control the consumption in the homes?
In that situation, Mr. Liu, I think that he's saying that, as per his opinion, it also differs on the society. Yeah, in the US and other developed countries, you have to maybe legalize it because it has different uses. Well, maybe he's taking a particular example, maybe marijuana or something like that, as an example. But if that situation has to be applied in Cameroon, let's say legalize and increase the price, I think that will increase more crime wave, because most people now want to take it as how they wish and wherever they want, and if they don't have the money at that rate to buy, what do? They want to get into more mess and get the drugs. But that's why I said that what needs to be done instead is to attack the root causes of this, and I accept with Apostle Ambe, we talk about sensitization. Those are the two things on my part I think which need to be done. Because if you understand that at this point in time, we're not just talking about drug abuse, we're talking about high increased rate or wave in drug abuse.
Outrageous.
So, I'll borrow your word, outrageous. And if we have to look at what are actually the causes to this outrageous increase in drug abuse in Cameroon in particular. So if we have to take that example, then you say maybe the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest, yes, has pushed most young people in the Northwest and Southwest to get into that. How do we get to end that crisis so that most of these young people can find reason? Joblessness. Most young people are involved in these things are jobless. They are home, they are idle, they don't have anything to do. Because you don't want to tell me that a young man who has a banana plantation to work in and knows that I have to go to work by from 4 a.m. in the morning will want to wake up at 4 a.m. and drop himself up and sleep back. Yeah, the next thing, Mr. Leo, which I still want to say is, if you think that another reason of this is to what actually pushes people to get into this, well, like I was saying, if you think about joblessness, if you think about the crisis and the like, then you should get to
solve some of these root causes, then most of these young people come out. You go to, and the next idea is that sensitization part, because I think, and I join my voice to that of Apostle Ambe in saying that, and with Doctor, say that sensitization is the core to it. If we get people sensitized, not necessarily by trying to force them to stop, but make them understand, because this drug thing is something personal. It's something personal. Make somebody understand. But well, the sensitization will have to have different categories, because you made mention of the fact that or Apostle Ambe is saying that maybe you show them pictures and the like, but when you look at the packet of a cigarette, there is somebody who is being an image which is more frightful, but people still smoke. So I think there are categories of sensitization that they need to embark in, and that is what is most important in doing.
Yeah, Prince, there is power. The government has power.
Yeah.
When government endorses something,
yeah,
it's difficult for. On the pack of cigarettes, say tobacco may be dangerous to your health, but because government has legalized it, people feel safe with it. That's the truth. The government has power. When government endorses something, it's difficult for people to get afraid of it. Now, people are afraid to even work with Indian hemp because government condemns it. Now, if you look at the effect of nicotine and the effect of marijuana, the effect of nicotine to the health is more dangerous than marijuana. Marijuana is a medicinal herb. It's just that the consumption is wrong. It's wrongly consumed, but medicinal is a medicinal herb. Now, marijuana is medicinal than nicotine that you consume. But because government has legalized nicotine, we see marijuana more dangerous than nicotine.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My greetings to all the panelists in the studio. Drugs issue in this country is becoming alarming because some government officials are involved because it gives them good amounts of money. I support what Apostle Ambe is saying. In mile 16, okay, you see military coming to collect money from the guys, okay? There are two places in Old Town where they sell these things, okay? We know it. Hello, Mr. Liu. I greet you all in the studio. I wish this topic be taken over and over and over again because the rate of drug consumption is too much in our community. I strongly support the fact that drug abuse awareness should be emphasized in schools, starting from primary education. Solange writing from Boya. Good evening to you in the house. The truth is that we cannot mobilize drug addicts to fight their sellers. About 80% of youth are into drugs. Now, what is the situation in the West? Because let us assume that the issue is, okay, guys are frustrated, we give them jobs. All of them are no longer going to get into drugs. Is the situation better in the West?
No, we talk about the West, like the Western nations.
Yes.
Now, you see, this lady I spoke of, who wrote to me asking about this thing is about being endorsed here, they call it the tree of life, talking about marijuana. Now, we realize the situation, their economic situation, is better off than us this way. But they still get themselves hooked up to the extent whereby most of them
are in rehabs.
Yeah. Now, I was looking at this, I was reading a publication that was talking about in all departments in the US, especially, that the health department grows, that health centers keeps multiplying more rapidly across the states than any other, and especially the departments that have to do with rehab. Why? Because the rate of drugs is getting into the increase in the West. And this lady, I cut what I was trying to explain last time. I mean, briefly, she was asking me, "What do you?" Because I was trying to tell her about something about drug and spirituality, which is the reason that many times these things are not emphasized. Like marijuana, if you look at the Rastafarian community, those that smoke marijuana are looked upon as those that are abusing it, like the Bomalis. They actually consume marijuana, but they cook it in other forms, like tea. There are other forms that they put it in food, not smoking. I was actually following a documentary yesterday night. I've forgotten the name of this person. He was talking. He's actually a naturalist, and for years, and they call them what? This is for vegetarians. Yeah. So he was talking about the spiritual benefits of marijuana, and also the health benefit of marijuana. Now, you know, this cannabis. Actually, cannabis is from the word kunubus, which means a way to produce smoke. and it was used mostly in religious ceremony. So the highness is just like an aftermath. So it was like a byproduct, like incense, like a byproduct. So, but you see today, when a person say, okay, I am following Bob Marley's religion, I'm a Rastafarian. I mean, now this way. If you ask the person, what do you understand about Rastafarianism? He knows nothing. But you know that Bob Marley was a Rastafarian and he used to consume ganja. And you find them consuming ganja.
There are a group of monks in Norway that produce all kinds of drugs with cannabis, with Indian hemp.
Yeah.
A group of monks. They have a clinic, naturopath clinic, which they use Indian hemp to produce all kinds of treatment from different ailments.
Okay, Mr. Liu, it is important when making public statements, we should state facts. Your panelists should not put all drugs in one basket. He mentioned that a lot of people are dying in America from drugs. He is right. They are dying because they are taking fentanyl and not cannabis with marijuana. In addition to what I stated earlier, you can control it by licensing who sells it. Please, God or prayers won't solve this problem. Okay, Dr. Wesley is, Dr. Wesley is writing. Good evening, Mr. Liu. From recent statistics, it shows that the consumption of tramadol in terms of general population has dropped due to its increase in price. So I believe in due time, if the price continues to rise, its demand is going to reduce. Okay. The doctor who called from the US has forgotten that the system is not like in Africa, but we have more addicted people in the West than in Africa, even though drugs are being legalized and controlled by the Department of Health and Taxation. Prince Bila is writing from Germany. Good evening, Mr. Liu, your panelists. A good topic and educative. Well, I think people who involved in drugs have a very weak mindset. The greatest success in one's life is to know and talking to yourself. All through my life, I have never smoked, but I have been exposed to friends who are chain smokers. Firstly, I have the notion that people who smoke are not clean and their mouth smells, just like drinking and ever other thing when it concerns your life, future and health. Okay, your life's future and health. Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the wonderful panelists. God bless you guys for constantly helping Cameroonians and the world at large through your very sensible programs. Do you know what there is no justification for drugs abuse, as some people are trying to justify its importance? These drugs can only lead us to death and very violent societies. Melinji writing from Upper Plateau Division, okay, Onkam. I don't know, Upper Plateau, Pluto. Good evening to you in the studio. The topic of today is very sensitive one. The youth of this country are gradually losing their place as leaders of tomorrow with consumption of these hard drugs. And Douala happens to be the center of drug consumption in Cameroon. Terence Ayuk is writing from Mutengene. Good evening to all of you watching us from Cham. Greetings, please, for the drug experts number. I have a serious case of drug abuse in my family. My elder brother is stealing, selling everything in the house because he wants to consume drugs. This is frustrating my parents and we don't know what to do. Prince is writing from Tico. Doctor, can you give out your number to them, please?
6750 26705 6750 26705.
Okay, so the number is gotten. Apostle Ambe, Valentine, and Ngwa. How do we effectively combat the situation or reduce it?
Like I said, stringent measures will be put by the law.
Okay.
You see, in Holland, I have friends who have traveled to Holland, Canada. They have shops where they sell marijuana. And those places are legal. There are different kinds of drugs. They call them cafeteria. You go and sit there, you take your shot of any drug of your choice and you leave. The government legalizes it. That's their way of operation over there. And to them, it's not that bad because they said, since they legalized drugs in Holland, they have closed down 17 prisons because they do not have prisoners inside the prison. Oh yeah, Holland closed 17 prison yards because they did not have criminals to put in the prison. That people instead become very calm when they take drugs. They become very quiet when they take drugs.
Yeah, depending on the kind of drug.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the testimony of Holland that I read. Yeah. They closed down 17 prison yards because they legalized drugs in certain cafeterias. You go there, take your drug, and you have your calm, and you go home and sleep quiet. You carry out your activities. People are not put under pressure. That's how it is. Okay. I'm sure that's from the angle where Dr. Wesley Angoni is coming from. Where we are right now, people don't, they should understand the reasons why people take drugs. People don't take drugs in Europe as a matter of frustration because they have a good economy. They have good standard of living. They have well-paid salary. Sometimes they take that thing for ecstasy, just for fantasy. But we take drugs here out of frustration. We take drugs here to go away from the misfortunes of the society. We take drugs here to walk out of the pain and disappointment we have had for so many years. And that's the reason why people take drugs here. How do we stop these drugs? Many people do not understand the casualties and the disadvantages of drugs. If the government can make me an ambassador against drugs in this country, I'll be happy. I will be glad to carry out campaign in all the 10 regions and set teams on ground that will produce effect. We enter the most places in school because the youths easily gather in school campuses. We use them. We use those school campuses and we carry a team there that goes and show pictures. We can even take people who have gone through drugs, come out, and then we take those who are suffering from drugs. Like this young man we just saw on television. We could use him for campaign. Okay, do you want to look like this? Do you want to talk like this? Do you want lots of education like this? When we show such a person, that image remains in their mind. Somebody who goes to see Indian hymn tomorrow say, hey, immediately he collecting the Indian hymn, he begins to think his image will look like this person who has turned out to be like this. That's sensitization. By so doing, we train also persons in those schools that will keep on sensitizing new persons that are coming. Because the best way in leadership is when you produce leaders. If you are a leader who does not produce leaders, then you are not a leader. So when we go to those schools, we have to set up a team, drug abuse team, that every morning they may give them at least 10-15 minute devotion. They come and display some casualties against drug and fight against it. By so doing, it will plant a seed in the heart of every child growing in this country. If that is done in the 10 regions of this country, I can tell you who will stop. Because somebody drugs because he's convinced to take drugs, and somebody has to convince him out of drugs.
Many children are dying because of the abuse of these drugs, unknown to many.
Yes.
Yeah, because when you read about the consequences, many could be killed. Consuming drugs, that is, your child dies in your house without you knowing that he's dying because of, yes. So many persons may die. Many of our families may have died because of excessive use of some of these drugs that we did not know. Thanks, Mr. Liu and the panelists for this topic. The rate of drug and our consumption amongst youths is alarming. The increase in criminality and mental deranged persons on our streets are consequences of drug consumption. The state should enforce tighter drug controllers measures, and sensitization, as you are doing, should be intensified. Mr. Ngam is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Ngam. Good evening, sir. I love this topic. Is so teaching the youth today. Do you know those who take drugs today are most of the youths to useless life? Have tried all means to fight this in schools, but I don't really know what to say. Okay, you did not write well, so the sense is not so clear. Please, do you have a live program today? Yes, we are live. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Drugs intake in Cameroon is alarming, especially in the life of students. Talking from experience, students in the University of Soa do consume this in an alarming rate, especially the so-called scammers. They use to upload on social media and consume later. A big thank you to Apostle Ambe. I don't know how they upload on social media. I don't know. Yes, but no, the situation of these secondary school students, because we say they are the leaders of tomorrow now. Is it not scary to note the type of leaders we are going to be having the next 30, 40 years for African states?
Yeah, Mr. Liu, you know, Apostle Ambe talks about sensitization, and Bachi and Sam has been carrying that sensitization. I would really want to invite you to be our ambassador, because we've taken upon ourselves, I told you guys, and of course you know our report that we put out last year, where we carried a 6-month campaign in schools. But unfortunately, most of the times when we go to some of these schools, the principals think that we have money, that we should give them something before we talk. I'm talking with experience. There are schools that I wrote to. Yes, of course. There is school I wrote to. But I really want to call on all the principals and other administrators who are really watching us live now to understand that, please, when next we come, open your doors to us, because we are out there to help the community. We need to help. This is what we talk about, sustainable development. Yes. This is part of sustainable development. How do you want these children to become tomorrow? They're part of your own children. Your own children are also going to these schools. So how do you expect, what if another child gets to, or your child gets in company with other children who are actually doing that? So we really call on you, please open your doors to us, because we will still be coming there, coming over to continue this campaign, because we think that it is something which is very, very important. If we are talking about Cameroon of tomorrow, then we should be thinking about these young people today, and they need to be conscious. And we understand that at this point in time, most of them are not conscious. Majority, I want to take the critical example of Shisha. Shisha came, and you see a child will tell you, no, I don't smoke cigarette, I smoke only shisha. It seems like it's a pride to smoke shisha. It is not harmful, and cigarette is harmful. Most of those things are, I think, it's part of sensitization. They don't have the awareness about what they are doing. Because that is a very good example. Shisha. You ask a child, no, I don't smoke cigarette, I smoke shisha.
And shisha is not harmful. Like
Okay.
Yeah, and they don't even know the consequences about that, because shisha, with scientific research, has shown that shisha is about 10 times worse than cigarette.
Okay. Good evening to you people in the studio. The main issue standing as a barrier in fighting drug abuse in the country is administrative recklessness. A well-known drug tear in Dobo, Bonaberi, have daily visits of police and gendarmes trucks there with no arrest but dues collection. Pius is writing from Douala. Yes, these places are known. Mr. Leo, what about those who take drugs for sex enhancer? Okay, I don't know what. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Drugs intake in Cameroon is alarming, especially in the life of students. Okay, drug as I don't know. But now, when you see, or you go to the tear for the case of Kumba, how do you help them out?
Now, as we're talking about Kumba, actually activity is not only restricted in Kumba. Okay. And we're talking about this. There is a situation I saw in the east. Betwa. Betwa. It was even about 3 times what we are experiencing in Kumba. Okay. So talking about what Mr. Leo just asked, I realized that I want to say my general observation about this thing, drugs and Cameroon. This thing is becoming a social problem in Cameroon. It took Cameroon by storm. We actually did not prepare for what we are having. Yes. What we are going through now. And even our readiness to combat it, the preparation and even what the approach is not. Because I've seen places they put mental health. But you look at it, it's actually not a rehab center. And we realized that most of the persons that I had to meet, maybe for the first time, some of them had been there and out. I mean, some of these people in the test, they have been there and out. How many of you have ever gone in for detox? You have many hands up. Now, how do I get these guys? Most of the people that have been carried for detox, most of them were taken either by a tutor or their parents without their will or against their will to that place, or some of them that are giving them a condition. If you don't submit yourself for this treatment, you will forfeit this, or we stop doing this to you. Because of that, he complies. But when we get to that place, because I was talking with one medical practitioner, he told me since the time he was transferred in his area, he has spoken just to 9 persons throughout the whole period. But when he saw the number of persons in the pictures that were able to gather, over 70, 100 and above, he said, how do you manage to gather these people like this? And so our first approach, I said, you are waiting for them in the office. We come to the place, to the hoods, to get them. I said, the first, all of them are stigmatized. They know that they are rejected, they are stigmatized. And people don't want to communicate or relate with them. So the very first thing we do is that we approach them with that kind of amity, with friendship. In short, we have a 4-step approach. It is, first of all, accosting the mobilization, that is coming to them and building rapport with them, sharing with them, and without any that is exposure of your intent that you want to, he has a problem you want to. So no, you just start relating with them. Already you are breaking that barrier, or that barrier of that stigma that they have. Next, we start telling them about our program, what we do. And that's already now trying to bring them, mobilize them to bring them to our symposium. What we do, we are out for, they know that we are not like against them, we are with them. Because actually, we are not against drug addicts. Because you look at it, many times people point finger at them, you took your hand to consume a thing, and today it's causing you to do this thing. You should use those very hands to stop it. But addiction is an illness. They are patients.
Yes, you are still as patients.
So that is how we consider them. And we make them, we try to drive that into their heads. Many of you have tried to leave this thing and you cannot leave them. You've gone to the hospital how many times and come back? No way. So after that stage of mobilizations, we get into sensitization. Start telling them psychoeducation, telling them about drugs, the various drugs that are found on the streets in our locality. Start telling them about the harmful effect, how it works on them, biology, on their physiology, psychologically and socially. They should see how their life has become. With that knowledge, you see some of them will even shed tears when they start seeing, embracing this knowledge. Next, we go into evangelization. This case, we start bringing them purpose. You are not existing here by accident. There's an essence for your existence. And I want to say this is one of the part that is taken out of most rehab programs. You know, a person needs to have a kind of moral reference.
Of course.
If a person does not have any moral reference, nobody is pursuing you. But you know you are created by somebody to fulfill a purpose.
Yeah.
And by you indulging in this thing, nobody fulfill destiny in drugs.
That's true.
And so by the time they start getting this, some of them start taking it, start knowing that, hey, they're very serious. And from there now we enter now into the procedure of the rehabilitation. Some of them may be medication assisted.
Okay.
Medication assisted treatment. That is, by the time you make up your mind, say you want to leave, you want to come out of drugs. There are withdrawal symptoms that follows. And some of them may be so severe that you need drugs at times to be able to control you. Or, for example, some of them, they have somebody who has been in ecstasy. When you withdraw abruptly.
Unfortunately, we are going to be ending this program at this juncture. So many messages wishing that we continue. Some of you are saying that we need to do another edition of the program. We hope we are going to have, if we could get some of the guys here who have gone through the process. You promised me in next week or 2 weeks time we can have them share their experience if they would want to. Thank you for coming. Huh?
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. Just want to extend warm evening out there to Mr. Galabe Emmanuel de Mboya, and we pray God and I thank God that the float from the mountain did actually touch you guys.
Okay, special good evening to you, Elder Sabina Ikoli, watching us from Boya, Moliko, to be precise, Elder at PCC. Moliko Boya. Thank you for coming, Doctor.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, sir. And I want to also extend greetings to all those members of the Rescue Relief Agency that also are watching me now and every other person.
Thank you to Apostle Ambe for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. It's always a joy to be here.
We want to thank you all who took time off to watch this edition of Prime R, and to you, Desmond and Eli, Tabi, Tambe Bryant for supervision. Stay blessed. A good night.